Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you may be, and welcome to today's PADA webinar in conjunction with Expedia Group Media Solutions on 2022 Travel Trends, a year in review. First, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Pruangkarn. I am the Chief of Staff at the Pacific Asia Travel Association, and I will be your host for today. We have a great lineup of speakers today, but just wanted to have a couple of notes before we actually do start today's webinar. So many are familiar with Zoom, but just as a refresher, at the bottom of your browser, you'll see both a chat function and a Q&A function. If you have any questions for the speakers, feel free to drop your questions using the Q&A function at the bottom of your browser. The speakers or presenters will be able to either answer it during the webinar, or will type it to you, or if they can't get to it today during the webinar, they'll try answering to you after the webinar is over. Please don't submit any questions using the chat function. It's hard to actually respond on both Q&A and chat. So any questions, feel free to drop them in the Q&A function. And that's all my notes for today. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage. She is the Director of Business Development at Expedia Group Media Solutions. Please welcome Ms. Celine Wickerhoff. Celine, over to you.
Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon to some. Thank you all for joining, and thank you, Paul, for the introduction. My name is Celine, and together with my Expedia Group colleagues, Michael and Karina, we are honored to share with you our observed trends from 2022, as well as some of the predictions for this year, 2023, based on our first-party data, as well as some of the third-party data. The tourism industry really took a big hit in the last couple of years around the world, and with quite a big impact on travel to and from the Asia-Pacific region. We saw that travel shop and book trends changed dramatically, and travelers adapted how they traveled and had to adapt to the change environment. Our reports show that some of these trends will return back to pre-pandemic, while other trends are here to stay as a new normal. But what we all know for sure is that the travel experience is more important than ever. And that's why it's also at the core of everything we do at Expedia Group, including how we connect marketers with our travelers. Now that takes a good understanding of those travelers, including their behaviors, their motivations, their influences, which can vary by geography, by generation, as well as by personal preference. And then there's a constantly changing industry challenging to consider as well, whether it's microeconomic, natural disasters, and really different things that continue to impact our world. This is why data is so important to capture all of these trends and the travel behavioral changes. Across Expedia Group's 10+ brands and in more than 70 countries, more than 177 million unique users per month visit our branded travel sites for inspiration, for research, and to book travel, whether that's accommodation, flights, activities, car rental, cruise, or other. And that results in the more than 70 petabytes of first-party data across our platform. Now, 70 petabytes, what does that really mean? How can we conceptualize that? So to put it into more tangible terms, that means the same amount of data that requires to take 4,000 digital photos every day for the rest of your life. That's a lot of data. But it's specifically about what we can do with that data. And we use it to help inform our partners' decisions and guide our partners' strategies. Now, my colleague Karina is really the data expert. She and her team work on the insights and media planning team with all of our media partners. And so in the next section, she will present on the Q4 2022 global travel trends.
Thanks so much, Celine. And hello, everyone. Travel is high on the agenda for 2023, and people are planning their trips further in advance. This is what we're seeing in our latest Global Traveler Insights report, which was in fact just released this week. I will now take you through its highlights. And the full report is available for you to download, so we would encourage you to do so and analyze it on your own. This report focuses on the evolving travel behavior and attitudes for our global travelers based on Q4 2022 and future 2023 plans. This data is based on first-party data as well as our latest custom research and can provide an indication on basically what we can expect in 2023. So let's then dig into this data and see what it tells us. Our data shows that global search volumes experienced a slight 10% increase year over year, which demonstrates a sustained traveler enthusiasm. When it comes to APAC searches, those volumes were up more than 50% year over year, likely connected to the easing of travel restrictions in various countries, including China, Hong Kong, Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, and Thailand. Additionally, you can see on this graph at the very end for December, we see a big spike. And we often see this at the end of the year, and it means it really signals a return to seasonality. So let's now look at search windows. As we've seen throughout the pandemic, travelers are still planning trips in the near term, but they're also starting to plan further out, which we've seen in our reports last quarter. Globally, the 180 plus day search window saw the strongest growth with a 20% increase in search share. And then when it comes to APAC, an even higher 30% growth was seen for international search share in the 61 to 90 day window. Such trends show returning customer confidence for bookings in advance. Okay, let's now dive into our top booked destinations globally and also see how it looks for APAC. Basically, easing travel restrictions in APAC, holiday travel, and the appeal of sunny destinations all influence the global top list of booked destinations. For APAC travelers, however, top destinations were not only those sunny destinations, but also major cities in the region, mainly Tokyo and Seoul. Also, Osaka entered the top 10 list, taking the number 3 spot and bumping New York off the list. Also, newcomer Taipei overtook Honolulu for the number 10 spot. Let's now talk about a new trend that emerged last quarter. As flexible work options remain for many companies around the world, blended or flexcation travel is on the rise. What it means is simply a longer stay that mixes remote work and play. Later on, Michael will be talking more about this trend. For now, I will also share that in our Q4 data, we've seen a triple-digit year-over-year increase in usage of the business-friendly filter, for example, Wi-Fi, pointing to the increased possibility of travelers booking lodging with additional amenities for both work and leisure. I talked about global trends. Let's now look closer at what exactly we see for the APAC region. In the first few slides, I will talk about search trends and we'll also discuss how it translates into bookings. So starting with searches to APAC destinations, we have seen a steady growth since the beginning of 2022. The months with highest growth were September and October, where we saw an index growth of even plus 75% against January 2022. Such a positive increase in the second half of the year was likely impacted by markets reopening and indicated a very healthy recovery out of pandemic. Okay, now let's look which markets are searching to travel to APAC. What we mean by markets in Expedia is our global points of sale. So for example, Expedia Japan and Hotels.com Japan will be classified on this list as Japan. In Q4 2022, US retained its top position as the top feeder market. The main shifts we have seen here were for Australia and Japan, which swapped the position comparing to Q4 2019. Another international market, Canada, pushed Hong Kong and Taiwan down the ranking. When it comes to UK, it kept its 8th position. We have also seen new markets on this list in Q4 2022, which we have not seen at the same time in 2019. These were New Zealand and Singapore. Let's look at search windows. Previously, I talked about what we see for global trends, and for APAC, those trends are very similar. What we are seeing is that last-minute trip declined, so that means travelers feel more confident to book in advance. And 31 to 60 days search window, which is the one in blue, recorded the highest increase from 15 in Q1 to 18% in Q4 2022. In the next two slides, I will talk about bookings to APAC destinations. Compared to January 2022, March has seen the highest increase with plus 34% index growth. This shows that some destinations have seen recovery already beginning end of Q1. This upward trend continued throughout the end of the year, and another big spike was seen in September. And now, to finish off my presentation, I would also like to mention which cities travelers are booking the most. In 2019, these were main cities in Japan, Thailand, Korea, Taiwan, Singapore, China, Australia, and Hong Kong. First quarter into the pandemic, we've seen some additional smaller destinations entering this list. This included Jeju and Busan, indicating traveler intent to explore destinations that are more remote, maybe less crowded as well. For Q4 2022, we saw slight shifts as compared to the same time in 2019. Tokyo still remained top booked city. However, the second city became Seoul, followed by Bangkok. So Japan, Korea, Thailand, Singapore, Taiwan, and Australia remained the top booked countries in APAC. We did not see, however, China and Hong Kong back to this list yet in Q4. So that's it from me. And I will now hand it over to Michael, who will talk more about the Traveler Value Index.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Karina. And it's really great to see the recovery that's occurring in APAC and really seeing that rebound come to fruition. So as you would have seen already, we have a lot of first-party data, and this is really important to understand the what and how for how travelers are booking. However, we need to be able to take that a little bit further to really uncover the why behind certain intents and behaviors. And this is where the custom research comes in that both Expedia Group and Expedia Group Media Solution conducts on quite a regular basis. And at the end of this presentation, we will share a QR code or a link to enable you to go to our site and download some of these reports to be able to deep dive in a bit more information. But for today, I'm going to be focusing on a little bit more on the Traveler Value Index for 2023. Now, for this research piece, it was conducted across multiple regions, and within APAC that included South Korea, Japan, and Australia, and it reached around 11,000 travelers. Additionally, it also included 1,100 industry professionals, so we're able to really contrast both what travelers are seeing as the outlook, as well as industry professionals, whether from lodging partners, DMOs, loyalty campaign managers, so on and so forth. So it gives us a really robust overview of what's to come. So for this research, it is really a snapshot of today's travelers' preferences. And as we emerge out of the pandemic, something that's become clear is there are some new permanent preferences. So things have changed for how people are approaching travel and their shopping journey. Then there's still some temporary trends. So these are still the aftermath effects of the pandemic or inflation or other things that might be influencing people's behaviors just in the shorter term. And then third, there's the fluctuating factors. So these are things that we're a little bit unsure about how it's going to pan out. They might become permanent preferences, or it could just turn out to be a temporary trend, and then we kind of go back to status quo. Something that really did become clear during the pandemic is when you take something away, you're only going to want it more. And absence truly made the heart grow fonder, with 46% of respondents sharing that travel is more important to them now, post-pandemic, than pre-pandemic. And they're backing that up as well with how they're allocating their discretionary spend, with 43% sharing that they're intending to increase their travel budget for this year, 2023. So I'm sure this is very welcome news for industry. And in fact, I do think this is something that most of us in the industry were expecting, and we've seen it in the past year with the pent-up demand, the revenge travel, people having a little bit more liquidity behind them to be able to get out there and start connecting and exploring the world again. And in fact, as we move forward into this year, it is actually a little bit of a disconnect between what industry is still projecting, where 58% of professionals are saying they believe that consumers' travel budgets will be larger this year than last. But in contrast, consumers, it's sitting around 43%. So there is a slight gap there where perhaps as industry professionals, we need to reflect and evaluate our pricing strategy, as well as, even more importantly, the value proposition we're putting forward to travelers to capture them to our destinations. As Karina mentioned earlier, flexibility has really come into play for working. Pre-pandemic, most of us were pretty office bound. We then went to work from home as default, and now most companies are opting for more hybrid working arrangements. So what this is enabling is flexications, where people perhaps are going to a different destination and then working remotely from there. So we're seeing this as an emerging trend, with 28% of respondents saying that they intend to take a trip like this in the next 12 months. So it's a new segment to be able to pursue as you're thinking about your strategies. Now, pre-pandemic, leisure travel was nothing new, as a very common term already, and it certainly hasn't waned as we look forward in the next 12 months, with 76% sharing that they tend to take a bleisure trip. This is where they're extending an existing business trip for leisure purposes. Something else that has really come through post the pandemic is travelers prefer to book with providers that align with their own personal values and beliefs. So consumers are paying a lot more attention now, more than ever, to how inclusive, or perhaps not inclusive, a destination or travel offering might be as they're making their purchasing decision. And in fact, 70% of consumers are more likely to choose an inclusive travel option, even if it comes with a higher price. Now, if we look back, 78% of travelers have in fact already previously made a decision on travel based on promotions where they feel represented. Now, if we take a view within this region, APAC travelers rate this even higher, along with travelers from Latin America. And then from a generational perspective, millennials also really weight this very heavily, with around 84% of respondents saying that it's been part of their previous decision-making experience. As we sort of came out from the pandemic and people started traveling again, one of the top reasons that motivated people to get back onto a plane and go interstate or international was to be able to reconnect with family and friends in person. Now, this is still really important to travelers, and around 46% shared that this would be a key driver for them to be able to make a trip in the next 12 months, but it's no longer in first spot. In fact, 49% of people shared that travel for their mental and physical well-being or for a change of scenery is really what's driving their decision-making to be able to get out there and discover the world again. There's certainly still a lot happening around us, so being able to take care of oneself has really become in the forefront of people's minds. As people navigated through the complexity of making bookings, trying to travel, particularly during or perhaps just on the tail end of the pandemic, it was not always the smoothest path, and flexibility really became king in people's decision-making process. The world's a lot more stable now, but what we're finding in our research year over year and month over month is people are still demanding this flexibility. So this is going to be a primary driver and decision maker as people are planning trips, whether it's from airline tickets or lodging providers. And as we kind of drill down a little bit further, we can see it's most important when people are planning international trips, which I think is highly logical. So 57% have shared that they would not book non-refundable lodging options when traveling in the future. Domestically, it's a little bit lower at 47%, but still really quite a high ratio of travelers. If we compare this to what industry is forecasting, there is definitely the understanding that flexibility is important to travelers. Perhaps it is still a little bit underweighted though in terms of the level of importance. So while many transport providers, lodging providers do still have flexible options or credit facilities, so on and so forth, around 63% of industry professionals said that they may not continue providing these at the same level moving forward. So this is a little bit of a disconnect between what travelers are really valuing at the moment in their path to purchase versus what industry is intending to offer moving forward. Something that we also observed during the pandemic, obviously bookings went down, but the share of bookings that were made from loyalty points, in fact, started to increase. And we've seen that trend maintained through 2022. And perhaps people similar to me that were sitting on a little bit of a stockpile of points pre-pandemic realize that you don't want to lose these, you want to be able to take advantage, and the facility to earn and burn is really important. But with that said, while loyalty and loyalty points are really important, it's not a key driver. We are still seeing pricing, flexibility, and even cleanliness being more important than loyalty programs or loyalty points. Now, during the pandemic, no one was immune to the challenges that we faced when it came to supply chain issues, staffing issues, and just general service delivery. So there has been a bit of impact to brand trust and loyalty across the board. Now, generally speaking, most industry professionals at around 82% have shared that they believe travelers and customers have been pretty understanding during this time. But even with that in mind, there still has been an impact to loyalty. And loyalties programs are very, very valuable to the travel industry, with around 3 out of 4 providers having some form of loyalty program. Now, the emphasis placed by industry on loyalty programs is a little bit heavier than what we're seeing in terms of what consumers are participating in, with around 44% only actively engaged in a loyalty program. Now, of those that are a loyalty member, they do treat it quite seriously. 53% are sharing that it's now more important than ever to book with providers where they are a loyal member. So there's definitely opportunity here to be able to double down on loyalty programs and be able to attract and acquire new members and secure that repeat business. And if we have a look at what they're really valuing from these loyalty programs, the one that comes out top is special discounting. So members only deal, for example, which kind of aligns with the point made earlier in terms of pricing is still quite an important issue as travelers are making their decisions. This is then followed by being able to collect points and redeem them for future travel. And then finally, being able to get those complimentary add-ons and other perks that are going to make their stays or travel experiences even better and make them feel much more special. So as mentioned earlier, travelers are really attracted to and wanting to be loyal to providers that align to their own personal values and beliefs. Something that we haven't yet touched on yet is sustainability, and this is a very important topic to industry and travelers alike, and has only become more relevant post-pandemic. So with that, I'm going to hand back to Celine, who's going to deep dive a little bit more into the sustainable travel landscape and what that means moving forward.
Thank you, Michael. It's an undeniable fact that the pandemic at least had one positive aspect, is that it had a good positive impact on the environment. And this is something our first-party data showed resonated really well with our travelers. And so we as Expedia Group, we want to dig deeper to understand more on this changing traveler preference. So in the second half of last year, in 2022, together with Wakeman Cushfield, we published a research study to examine the detail on how consumers feel about sustainable travel. We did a survey with over 10,000 people from multiple countries around the world. And we specifically wanted to learn how important sustainable options are to the consumers when they're traveling, what people would sacrifice to be a more sustainable traveler, and what sustainable resources people are looking at when they're planning a trip. Now, the full research report has a lot of detail, is very complete, can also be downloaded for free from our advertising.expedia site. But over the next couple of minutes, I'm just going to share a few highlights. The two most important takeaways from this study were that, firstly, 9 out of 10 of the respondents from the study indicated that they look for sustainable travel options when traveling. That's 90%, so the vast majority. And secondly, 50% are willing to pay more for transportation, activities, or lodging if the option was more sustainable. So if you're an industry professional and you're offering sustainable options or activities or amenities, you want to make sure that the travelers know. Because 2 out of 3 consumers want more sustainability information from lodging and transportation providers to help them make more informed decisions. So we saw that 50% of the travelers are willing to pay more for sustainable travel, but how much more? The report indicates that on average, consumers are willing to pay a whopping 38% more to make their travels more sustainable. And what are they willing to spend more on for sustainable options? Food and dining were one of the biggest areas where people were willing to spend a bit more on, followed by activities and experiences, and then also transportation. So we see that people are not only ready to travel again, but they want to find new ways of responsible traveling. Now, not only did we hear from the consumer and the travelers, but we also wanted to listen to the perspective of the industry players. And they shared that sustainability is also a priority for them. In fact, it's a tie between marketing and sustainability as one of the highest area of investments for 2023. 1 in 5 industry professionals are saying that sustainability will be their top investment priority this year. Not only are sustainability investments top of mind for the industry, our report also showed that if travel businesses don't prioritize inclusive practices, that they might lose travelers from key demographics. So many industry professionals responded that they are already taking action. 3 in 5 organizations, so 60%, made changes in the last year to ensure their services are inclusive and accessible. And an additional 21% have plans to do so. 64% of the industry professionals also agree that consumers and customers will choose inclusive travel options even if they're more expensive. So let's go back and to hear from the consumer perspective and the importance of inclusion to travelers. And you've already heard this from Michael before. 7 in 10 would choose a destination, a lodging, or a transportation option that is more inclusive to all types of travelers, even if it was more expensive. So consumers are paying attention now more than ever on how inclusive or how not inclusive current travel offerings are when they are looking and booking. Our research also dives into the idea about culture and community. What is good for travelers is good for local culture and communities, and it can benefit local economies. Travelers are seeking an opportunity to interact with diverse communities and experience the true cultural heritage of the destinations they visit. 64% of consumers are interested in learning more about travel options that support local cultures and communities. And that's even higher for Gen X at 80%. 42% have purchased from local cultures, communities, and minority groups while traveling in the past 2 years. 46% visited local cultural or historical sites on their travels. We also see that voluntourism also rises to the top for millennial travelers specifically, who are 24% more likely to take a trip to support a local community. So from all of the things that Michael, Karina, and I shared, and from the different trend reports and research reports, we shared a lot of data today and a lot of key takeaways. And usually we do just highlight 3 or 4 at the end, but there was just too much goodness. So here's a summary of the top 6 things we think you should remember. First of all, booking windows are lengthening. People are booking more in advance, which is a great sign of consumer confidence. There's a good increase of search, especially for mid-year 2023, and especially for city and beach destinations. Secondly, flexcations are becoming more popular. There are more blurred lines on where to work and play. There's an extension of that leisure trip, but now people are spending more time in destination. 3, sustainable and inclusive travel options are highly valued by travelers. We said 9 out of 10 seek sustainable travel options, and more than 50% are willing to pay more for it. 4, activities and experiences continue to be a top priority and decision driver for travelers. From culinary first travel to wellness retreats to off the beaten path adventures, experience are very important for the travelers. Now, amid some looming economic concerns, travel behaviors will likely shift. And as a result, offering low pricing, demonstrating value, and loyalty programs will become even more important. And then lastly, mobile app search share in 2022 was higher than 2019. And that illustrated the importance of reaching potential travelers across devices, channels, and platforms. We're also seeing a share shift between mobile web and mobile app searches. Lastly, we wanted to just leave you with a few inspirational examples on how some of the industry players and markets have successfully caught on the above mentioned trends and use this to connect our Expedia audience of travelers to their brand. So as an example, in 2022, Expedia Group Media Solutions worked with Tourism Malaysia on a smart partnership to help promote the reopening of the country to long-haul travelers from the US, UK, and Australia through inspiring content, driving shoppers to this customized, engaging microsite you see, and encouraging travel bookings to Malaysia. Also, Tourism Events Queensland are promoting international travel to Queensland through beautiful imagery and through native ad placements that are fully integrated with the overall page and have been designed specifically to be a naturally extension of the Expedia Group organic content. Another great example of non-disruptive native marketing is our travel ads sponsored listings for hotels and lodging providers. And this shows within the hotel search results page of a destination. This specific hotel in Hakone, Japan, implemented attractive and a localized ad copy that highlights its unique offerings with the objective to gain market share and to better maximize its visibility. And partners like South Australia Tourism, together with Air New Zealand, also saw the benefits from reaching an Expedia shopper and similar highly qualified and targeted shoppers outside of the Expedia platform with the Passport Ads audience extension. Now, we shared some really beautiful examples, and actually we would love to share so many more, but here's just a few things that we put together as a few recommendations and thoughts on how marketers can stand out to travelers. And while you read that, I'm sure the panel is preparing, and I'm going to hand over to my colleague Michael, who will moderate this panel. Thank you.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Celine. All right, I am very excited to be able to introduce our esteemed panel. So I'll let them turn on their cameras. But as they're doing that, I'll just quickly go through who we're lucky enough to have joining us today. So we have Emma joining from Tourism Fiji, where she's the Chief Marketing Officer. We have Datuk Musa, who's the Deputy Director General from Tourism Malaysia. And then Kun Big or Kannaphon from Minor Hotels Group, who's a Senior Director of Distribution. Now, I'll let you each just briefly perhaps introduce yourselves and what you do with your organization. Perhaps we'll start with Emma and kind of just go left to right, and then we'll drop the slide so we can see everyone's faces a little bit more clearly and kick it off from there. So Emma, I'll just hand it to you.
Bula, thank you, Michael, and Bula, everyone. I'd love to say Bula from Fiji, but I'm actually in Australia right now. But I'm normally based in Nadi in Fiji. I am Chief Marketing Officer for Tourism Fiji. We are tasked with promoting Fiji as a tourism destination across the world. And I lead a team of 13 absolutely amazing marketing professionals who are based in our Nadi head office. That's me.
Thank you, Emma. Datuk Musa, I'll pass to you to introduce yourself. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Musa. I'm the Deputy DG for promotions. Like Emma, we are actually looking at promoting Malaysia to the rest of the world. Within my area, I have 3 international promotions division and also the advertising and digital division. This is our effort is to increase the traffic into Malaysia after COVID, and hope that everybody, will pick Malaysia as one of the destinations. Thank you.
That's wonderful. Thank you. And Kun Big, over to you.
Good morning, everyone. And my name is Kannaphon or Big. Actually, it is the last minute that we have to change the panelists because my colleague is asking me to be on the panel for him on his behalf because he got a very urgent meeting today. But for myself, actually, I'm working with minor hotels for nearly 12 years. Actually, it's 12 years, not nearly. It's this month is celebrate my 12th year anniversary, and I'm doing on the distribution part. We have the team, a small team that is leading on the specialist for the product of our hotels to distribute to all the channels. It includes all the B2B, B2C, and then I'm take care of all the distribution for connectivity of all the minor hotels. So nice to be here and good to be in the panelist today.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Kun Big, and happy 12-year anniversary.
Thank you.
All right, so we've got about 20 minutes to be able to go through some questions with the 3 of you. But what we'll do is we'll drop the slide just so everyone can see you a little bit more clearly. And I'm going to start off with Emma, if that's all right, to ask what changes have you observed in traveller behaviours, expectations and preferences compared to a few years ago?
Sorry, forgot that I was still on mute. I was about to kick off. So before you say that famous sentence, Emma, you're still on mute. Yeah, look, it's really interesting, and listening to your presentation, there's just so much that resonates with me as a travel marketer. We have been seeing a bit of a shift for a number of years, but my feeling is that generally it got more pronounced post-pandemic. The shift that we've seen is that people really want truly authentic experiences. They want to immerse themselves in new cultures and really experience a destination, not just at a surface level. It's not just about
But it looks like we may have had a little bit of a connectivity issue with Emma, unfortunately. Perhaps while that resolves, Datuk Musa, would it be okay for you to sort of answer from the lens from Malaysia, and perhaps if you're also seeing that in terms of people seeking authentic experiences?
Yeah, this is what Emma was saying just now. We can see there's a changes in trends of the travel behaviors, not only to Malaysia, but overall. Of course, because of COVID-19, we can see hygiene and safety. That's the number one things that they're looking at. And then we can start saying that, they are changing in terms of group inclusive tours. It become that, they're willing to travel small, more on free independent travelers or free independent group travelers coming in, the small numbers. And from our study as well, then some others that we can see that, again, you did mention about value for money. They're looking at value for money destination, and they do not want to venture that far from home, and they are basically moving around destination close to the home. And of course, uncertainties when it comes to flexibilities that have been presented earlier. because of inflation, economic uncertainties in terms of airfare also getting high. So there's a lot of demand. You can see, and of course, experiential tourism is one of those that they're looking more on authentic destination and spending more time. This is what we call slow tourism as well.
No, that's great. And I think you might have had a slide as well. I'm not sure if you wanted to touch on.
Oh yeah, maybe I just can show it to you.
Yeah.
I just want to show this. This is the impact of COVID-19 to Malaysia, especially. As you can see, the chart that we can show here. You can see from 2004 or below. This is what we can show to you all the happening. That green color one. There's a SARS, there's Iraq wars, H1N1. There's a event in Malaysia itself, and also the MH370, MH17 incidents. But you can see the bar still up there. But when COVID-19 came in 2020, the whole thing dropped to the bottom, rock bottom. And this is unprecedented. And this is what I think not only for Malaysia, but the rest of the world. This is just I want to show to the rest of the audience, as well as maybe we can discuss on that. And this is a change of behavior that we're talking about, because of COVID-19 basically changed everything. Thank you.
It most certainly did, and that's very pronounced in your slide. It looks like Emma has been able to rejoin. I think we lost you around where you're talking about authentic experiences is something that people are looking for. Are you happy to kind of kick back off from where we lost you?
Yeah, if that's okay with you guys, I'm really sorry. It just completely kicked me off, which was terrible timing. But yes, so people are looking for authentic experiences and immersing themselves into destinations. And as I mentioned, that's definitely more pronounced post-pandemic. The other thing we're seeing, and again, this mirrors what you were saying in your trends presentation, visitors are much more active on holiday than they were post-pandemic. So our day trips, our experiences, our activity providers, they are all reporting that they are much busier than they were pre-pandemic. Some are having the best months that they've ever had on record, despite our visitation still not being at 100% of what it was pre-pandemic. So certainly we are just so delighted to see that. We're delighted to see that people are really, as I mentioned, immersing themselves into the destination, doing everything that they possibly can do, getting out of the resorts and experiencing so many different things. That's amazing for us as a destination, because we can show our whole destination, but also more than that, it really does ensure that more of our economy in Fiji can really benefit from visitors, which is obviously critical.
That's fantastic. It's really interesting to hear how people definitely really want to get out there, be a little bit more adventurous and really immerse themselves in the destination that they're going to. So Kun Big, I might turn to you as someone who is part of a global lodging provider. What sort of observations do you have, particularly in contrast to the two destinations that were just discussed?
Yeah, actually, it's the same from Emma and Datuk, that we see that this demand is driving by domestic and sustainability, and also the flexible cancellation policy and flexible chain that customer is looking for. But the main thing that we see that is very important and changes very quickly, that is the channels, the technology that is used to book for the hotels and the accommodation. We see the shift from the own website is changing to the mobile application that is more and more. And also the experience, the immersive experience that the guests want to have, like the trial before they going, and the technology that is coming into the using or trial for the travel is become more and more important. For example, like the metaverse that you might be heard more often, because all the accommodation and all the airlines start to use this to give the guests more experience to trying before they travel. So this, I think, that is a big change that is we see after the COVID.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and actually links very nicely to the next question that I have, and I might actually stay with you, Kun Big. So I'd be interested to understand how you've adapted your commercial or marketing strategies in kind of the response to this change in travel landscape? So you kind of mentioned already the metaverse perhaps being a way to be able to engage with people before their trip. So are there any other creative platforms or tactics that you're using?
Actually, during the COVID, we have the big project that is coming up. We are the members brand of GHA or Global Hotel Alliance, right? And we see the opportunity that the guest is not really attractive to the points anymore. So we change the way that we reward to the customer by using the we call it discovery dollars. That every time that purchase everything at the hotels, we convert it into the real money. So it's like a percentage that they will get into their pocket or the discovery wallet, and they can use it right away at our hotels. So that they can use at spa or they can use at our restaurant as a real money. So this is a very big change for us and for every brand under the Global Hotel Alliance as well.
That's really interesting. It sounds like you're making it a lot more tangible for the traveler and consumer to
correct,
take advantage.
Correct. We change it from the point system until to the real money, to the discovery dollars that will be high perceived value to the customer, mean that we have more or less discounting to the pricing as well.
No, that's great. Emma, I'd be interested to hear for Fiji as a destination, if there's any different sort of creative platforms or tactics you're trying to engage with travelers.
From a Tourism Fiji perspective, we have just developed a new suite of assets and a new brand positioning. So the channels that we're using are very much the same channels as that we've used in the past. However, our approach to creative is quite different. So our new brand positioning, as you can see on my background, is Fiji, where happiness comes naturally. Previously, our brand positioning was around happiness, and that's an enduring platform for Fiji, but it was where happiness finds you. And that really put the tourist at the center of what we were doing. During the pandemic, it became apparent that Fiji, it's just such an amazing country in so many ways, and such a fantastic sense of community and resilience, and people came together so well to get through the pandemic. So we decided that we really wanted to put the destination and its people first and foremost in terms of at the center of our brand. So we have shifted that happiness proposition to where happiness comes naturally. And you'll see from our new creative, it really takes Fiji is very much prominent in what we do, as opposed to seeing it through the tourist's eyes. What we're really doing is focusing on the fact that happiness is something that's, it's a truth in Fiji. Fijians inspire people to feel happy. So many people talk about this transformative experience that they have in Fiji, and that's really the experience through interactions with the amazing local people and the culture. So our creative platform is really leaning into that and is very much putting Fiji and Fijian people first, as opposed to the tourist. And we're using, all our standard video works really well for us. We've just got on TikTok, so please give us a follow at Fiji. And those platforms where we can showcase our beautiful creative are still working really, really hard for us. And we still feel like there's, more that we can push in those more sort of traditional social channels. And yeah, we're really excited to see how that goes.
That's great. And I have certainly been lucky enough to enjoy Fijian hospitality, and it's certainly very unique and very, very special. And I think that really connects well with the research that we've uncovered in terms of how people are wanting to engage with local communities and how important that is. Yeah, so it seems very, very relevant.
Yeah.
Datuk, Musa, how does its strategy look like for Malaysia, and how you're maybe trying different commercial or creative tactics to engage?
Yeah, actually what we have done, even before COVID, actually, we're already moving into digitalization. But when COVID came in, that really, hastened and make it even faster for us to adapt to it. When COVID came in, what was things that the first thing that we do is we're still communicating with the rest of the world through our 30th station all over the world. through telling them about the status of Malaysia in terms of COVID. We be transparent about the numbers, and we're also talking about the destination. And some of these industry players also, they introduce this. You can still travel to Malaysia, but using video, you can still take a look on some of the destination within Malaysia at your home, since you are not allowed to travel anywhere and our borders closed. And you can still monitor and take a look on, for example, destination like Malacca and the rest. This is where then, through that way that we come up with actually even before COVID, already planning to come up with the Travel Malaysia apps, for example. We have it in Travel Malaysia apps in Android as well as in the iOS. And also we produce a digital brochures, or IDB we call it, interactive digital brochures, even before COVID. So we managed to even push it further to the rest of the the traffic to take a look into that. And what we did a lot more is basically to be very strong on social media, actually, because people cannot move out with the handphone on their side. Then basically we are pushing a lot more infos through FB and Instagram, even into Twitters and the rest. And of course, now we already venturing into TikTok. And on top of that, in terms of new and creative platform, we're also working with OTAs directly. And despite the fact they cannot travel, but we are talking in terms of packages, they can even book now, travel letters, and this kind of things that we are pushing to the industry to work with us. And we even are working with the GDS in order to come and work to introduce them to the new things in Malaysia. And of course, through that change of travel behaviors, we are looking at slow tourism, experiential tourism, safety and security, and plus sustainability to be part of the main push that we are doing.
Yeah. No, and sorry, I have to apologize. You may have noticed that my computer also died, so it was my turn after Emma. So I've taken Celine's laptop, so I'm not Celine, I'm Michael still. And sorry, I missed some of your response in there, but I definitely heard that you're really active in how you're engaging, with the travelers globally throughout the pandemic, which is, very, very important for sure. And I'd be interested in, and sorry if you've already touched on this, but how have you been able to leverage some different data and analytics moving forward to be able to better target these markets and reapproach them as everything's opening back up? And is this at all a change from how you've used data and insights previously?
Yeah, on our side, actually we have two sets of data that we've been using even before. The structured one that we've been using, for example, we are, I think, more than umpteen years, we've been subscribing to the OAG, to Euromonitors, to Forward Keys and the rest. This is more on structured data. And on top of that, we're also having the unstructured data that we use, meaning getting some data from the internet directly and from others, counterpart of ours sharing some data. For example, Expedia's, Travelport, even TripAdvisor's to some extent. And these are the things that by using this, we also having our internal data that we captured from the Department of Immigration. And within ASEAN even, we are sharing our data with the rest of the countries in order to take a look which are the market and so forth. All these data, basically we collect it together and we sit down together in order to identify which market, for example, is it a long haul coming in, is it the short haul, or is it the cross within our area. This is that with this data, for example, what we did was we identified that we managed to identify that those neighboring countries of ours, for example, the cross-border traffic coming in. So these are the things we are concentrating during this 2021, because our borders open up only 1st April. So before that, we close it, and we do it strongly in terms of domestic market. We did several surveys internationally as well as domestically, just to take a look and to test on what kind of travel behaviors and what they are expecting to. And we managed to use this data in order to strategize and to discuss with the Ministry of Health and even to discuss with the government when should we open up the borders and that. And this is what I think, for example, by 1st April, we open up. We don't have any restriction for those people coming in. And we can see immediately it went up, in terms of travels into Malaysia. And of course, we are partnering with Expedia, the latest one. We're using that data in order for us to take a look which area they're coming in, which country of resident or which nationality coming into Malaysia. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. It's quite a breadth of data as well that you're leveraging, and being able to, I guess, splice and understand, how to better reach and address the travelers coming to the destination. Kun Big, I know that data has always been very important to you, and you leverage a lot of first and third party data. How is that looking for you in this landscape compared to pre-pandemic?
Yeah, sure. That during the COVID, actually, this allow us to develop the new way of collecting the data. We develop our view of our own customer, that we know that the pockets of demand where it is, because from the small demand that we have during the COVID. And we develop our single customer views, that is collect the data from various touch points, from all the social media, from the PMS that we have, to understand the customer lifetime value. So that is try to develop our predictive analysis, so we can distribute the specific offer to the right customer. So this one is will helping us to minimize the cost, and also have the more return on investments as well. And we also develop the model, RFM model, that is monitor the how recently the customer transact with our brand, how frequent they engage with our brand, and how much the money they spend on our brand product and services as well. So we know that which high value customer that we can give the high value touch service experience.
That's really interesting, and I guess how it addresses personalization, and it's great to kind of see over the lockdowns that we've experienced and the slight slowdown, how we've been able to push innovation at the same time. So really, really interesting to hear the approach at Minor. I'm going to change gears and touch on sustainability. I'm conscious that we're approaching time quickly, and I think it would be remiss not to touch on the topic of sustainability and hear all of your inputs. So Emma, would you be able to share how you see sustainability playing a role in your marketing strategies in the near future? I know they've already been in there, but what's on the roadmap?
Yeah, so actually a sustainability roadmap is first step in the roadmap, and that's actually being worked on at the moment. Tourism Fiji recruited a sustainability officer very, very recently in the last 6 months, Sanishma, and she's doing an absolutely phenomenal job in terms of just making sure that everybody in our destination is really clear what sustainability is all about, because it's just so complex and it's such a big subject. And Fiji destination is excellent at coming together, all being on the same page. And like when we launch our new brand, everybody gets on board and shares the same messages. We had a fantastic health and safety program during COVID. So we want to really lean into that from a sustainability perspective as well. So actually for us, sustainability is not necessarily about marketing. It's actually about, getting really clear on what sustainability means, what our targets are, and given our industry the roadmap and the steps they need to take positive steps every day to be closer to being more sustainable. It's not just about environmental sustainability, it's about cultural sustainability as well. And just making sure that we're always doing the right thing. So it's very much a destination project. It's very much involving a lot of different stakeholders. The key thing for me as Chief Marketing Officer is that we make sure that the product, the roadmap, the steps that we're taking are correct before we start to talk about ourselves as an incredibly sustainable destination. There's amazing things happening in sustainability in Fiji, but we want to be really clear and make sure our whole of industry know what we're talking about and know what steps they need to make before we really start to shout about our sustainability credentials.
Yeah, I really love that. I think that really highlights how authentic you are in your approach. I think, consumers also really wary around lip service when it comes to sustainability. It is a complex topic and there's a lot more to it than just perhaps environmental elements. There's definitely cultural elements there as well. So I think that's a really, really insightful response. I'd be interested, Datuk Musa, to hear in terms of what's on the roadmap for Malaysia, another really stunning destination.
Thank you. I think earlier there was a presentation on sustainability. You can see 90% of the consumers looking at sustainable travel options. So these are the things that, we realize this way ahead. I think this is part of ours to support the SDG. And way back in 2019, we come up with the roadmap, what we call it Malaysia National Tourism Policy, NTP 2020-2030, and basically addressing overall plus the sustainability. And this is what now, together with another body within Malaysia, what we call it Malaysia Productivity Corporation, we are together in order to come up with this by introducing new, not a tagline, a symbol. Now because of COVID, a lot of people they're a bit reluctant to shake hand. And where in Malaysia we're doing it, we put our hand on our chest, left side of the chest. And this is part of sustainability. Why? Because if you look into it, we call it a campaign, Sayangi Malaysia. There's a slide on it that I will put on. And just put your hand here and bow a bit. And basically within that, there are several elements inside. We are talking about, let me tell you, within that 5, we're going to share our values, basically cultures and tradition. I'm talking about sustainability, not only on environment. This is cultures and tradition, art and heritage, environment, love for our shared values. And the aim also to boost productivity and competitiveness Malaysia tourism industry. This is you can see that environment, culture, heritage, ethics, and unity. We're talking about sustainability here, and to maintain it, we call it Sayangi Malaysia or Love Malaysia. So these are the things, campaign that I can tell you. And of course, among the private sector here in Malaysia, they are talking about ESG, and a lot of them doing it already. And hopefully, I think with this holistic approach of the government, we are looking at in order to make sure that Malaysia is one of the attractive destinations where people can come in. And on top of our side, in terms the current thing that we've been doing for the past 20 years, what we call it community-based tourism. And sometimes we call it homestay. And this is where then the shared value, we are not selling accommodation here. We are talking about experiential tourism that you can, derive from this community-based tourism. And this is where we maintain it, because Malaysia is truly Asia. It's the people of Malaysia and the cultures and heritage that we are putting out there for the rest of the traffic coming to Malaysia. Thank you.
No, that's great. It's a very comprehensive and, as you said, a holistic plan and roadmap that you have for the destination. So really great. All right, Kumbig, over to you. We'll wrap up with you. It's great to hear in terms of from a global lodging provider, how you're approaching sustainability, both from a marketing lens or in general.
Thank you, Michael. At Miner, actually, the sustainability is one of our key pillars. We give them very important, and it's create like the positive impact to our environment and the community and the stakeholder as well, because the shareholder will be interested in the company that has the sustainability, and also the customer will be interested in any hotel that maintain the sustainability. And this we give a very important to all the points. We have a really big project that is in place. We also have the elephant camp in Chiang Rai, in Anantra Golden Triangle, that we maintain the welfare of all the animals, and have the project in Phang Nga as well, that we have the turtles, the farming to lay the eggs to back to the nature. So this is kind of the program that we give back to the community to make sure that our community is also get all the benefit from our hotels.
No, that's great, and some very, very great initiatives that you have in place there. All right, I'm conscious of time. Thank you so much for those insights. It's really been fantastic to be able to hear from the three of you. So Emma, Kunbig, Datuk Musa, really, really insightful. I'm going to hand back to Paul, but just before I do that, we have put the QR code up on the screen that you can scan, and it'll take you to the landing page where you can find our research. It's also been put in the chat as well earlier, and we'll, I'm sure in a follow-up, include it there as well. But if you've got any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us as well. Always happy to engage separately. But with that, let me hand back to Paul to wrap up today's webinar. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
So much. Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Michael. Fantastic job monitoring that session. Thank you very much to all my good friends at Expedia Group, Celine and Karina as well. Also, thank you to our panelists, Emma, Datuk Musa, and Kun Big, for joining us out of their very busy schedule. So thank you so much. Just gonna do a quick wrap up before we end this webinar. So if I could just share my screen. So once again, thank you to all of our speakers and presenters today. Thank you so much to our partners in today's webinar, Expedia Group, for organizing today's webinar. So if you like this webinar, just wanted to keep you alert of our upcoming activities. So just next week, we have our PATA Youth webinar. It's a Young Leaders in the Tourism Industry. This is happening on Tuesday, February 28th. It's at 2 p.m. Singapore time. This will be with our Sustainability and Social Responsibility Project and Research Coordinator, Ms. Fernanda Rodock. We also have from DOT Philippines, Kim Benedict Oviedo, and from the Lombok Tourism Polytechnic, and also Face of the Future, Suryal Hizmi. So if you're a youth or if you're not interested in the subject, feel free to join us next Tuesday, February 28th. If you are attending ITB and are a PATA International member, please do join us for a PATA Networking Lunch. This is hosted by ITB Berlin. It's happening on Wednesday, March 8th at 12 noon at the City Cube in Berlin. If you would like to RSVP for this lunch, please do contact our membership team. Again, this is for members only. I will be there at ITB, so hopefully I will see you there in person if you're attending. So please do join us at the PATA Networking Lunch just in a couple of weeks in Berlin. And of course, we have our PATA Destination Experience Forum in March 2023 in Sarawak, Malaysia, hosted by our good friends at the Sarawak Tourism Board. This is from June 21st to 23rd under the theme Sustainability in Action. Early bird rates are still available for conference delegates, buyers, and sellers. So please do join us. Early bird rate will end in March 15th. We have it is a one-day destination experience. We can choose from 3 different tours, as well as MART and conference held over 2 days. Program will be up soon, as well as official hotel information. I was just there a couple weeks ago and did hear about the hotel rates. They are actually exceptional. So please do join us in Sarawak in June. If you have any questions about today's webinar or any of PATA's activities, or if you're not a member or interested in becoming a member, feel free to email me at paul@pata.org. If you want more information about PATA, feel free to visit our website at www.pata.org. So that is the end of today's webinar. So once again, thank you to Expedia Group. Thank you to all our speakers and presenters. Thank you, as always, to our executive board, our members, our life members, our partners, our chapters, for the continued support of the association. Without that, none of this is possible. And most importantly, thank you to all of you for joining us in today's webinar. Thank you. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I will see you soon. Take care. Bye.